and welcome to the US edition of the weekly market roundup. It is Sunday, 10th of January. My name is Abdul Hamid and I'm the founder of pivotinvestor.com. So in today's session, we're going to have a look at the broader markets, the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq, see the performance over the last week to identify some key price levels going into next week. We'll look at the selected winners and losers from the past 5 days. And then finally, we'll head over to pivotinvestor.com to perform a market scan and identify some potential opportunities for the upcoming week. So let's head off then straight to the S&P 500 chart. I'm looking here at the weekly chart. Got the 200 period moving average plotted on the chart. And these lines here are the standard floor pivot lines. These are the yearly pivot lines, and that's what I typically use when looking at the weekly chart. And if I'm looking at the daily chart, then automatically we'll get the monthly pivots plotted. If I flick over back to the weekly chart, as you can see, up 2%, or just shy of 2% for the week, but at an all-time high. And in between at the moment, the R1 weekly floor pivot and the central pivot down below at 3,230. Market looks strong, continued their strength into the new year. And from what it seems like, reasonably expect if the market continues its strength, the first real major resistance is at 4,275, 4,200. However, I also wanted to switch over to the Camarilla pivots, so you can see some potential short-term resistance points up above, and there we have them at 3,896, so 3,900, 4,050, 4,200. These be key price levels to watch out for over the coming month or so. Switch that back to the standard floor pivots. If I also look at the daily chart as well, I've got this really tight stacked pivots over here. Typically when you have these stacked pivots, it's typically time for a breakout of these levels as well. So we'll be monitoring price closely. R2 is a pivot up above which does not typically get breached. As you can see in the previous months, the R2 pivot is not something that often gets breached, but when it does, as you can see over here, when R2 gets breached, it's quite common for it to target R3. So for this month, if we do see a breach of the 3843 level, then potentially reasonably expect for 3,900, 3,926, 3,930 in January should the strength continue. So keep an eye on that. Heading over to the Nasdaq now. It's a daily chart for the Nasdaq. Let's just quickly have a look at the weekly chart first. And no surprises again. Huge strength going in to next week, up almost 1.7%. Next longer term level for the year is at the 14,950 level, close to that 15,000. Then down the bottom we've got 10,847. So again, looking strong. Some immediate levels. If we just switch over to the Camarilla pivots as well for the Nasdaq, you can see some levels up above 13,462, 14,000 and 14,585. So some key levels up above to monitor over the next few weeks and months. I'll flick that back to the standard floor pivots. We'll head over to the daily chart, and got an immediate resistance, potential resistance up above at 13,133. So we'll see how the Nasdaq reacts to that. Breaching that, we'll quite safely say that we can reasonably expect to see 13,375, and a good checkpoint at that time to see where we're at and how price action is unfolding. So we'll come and visit that. Now, to the weekly performers. Let's go first through the winners. So over the last 5 days, selected winners, we've got Jaguar Health up 390.8%. We'll have a look at the charts for these in a moment. We had Marathon Patent Group up 152.78%, and Applied DNA Sciences up 128%. Let's have a look at some of these charts. So first, Jaguar Health, as a daily chart. Well, from the beginning of the week, it's really been blasting up there past the monthly R2 pivot, and typically when we break through the R2 pivot, you can expect the price to continue the momentum up, which it has done. But then I'll switch over from the weekly view. Well, it's taken out pretty much all the pivots, and so we'll monitor that price to keep an eye on it, see how price action unfolds here on onwards, whether we'll get an opportunity for a pullback to potentially enter. If you look at the historical prices, there could be much more movement in this. As I mentioned before, when these pivots are so tightly stacked together like this, a breakout and huge potential for some upside movement there. It looks like just coming out of this long channel that had been building up over here. So now be reasonable to expect almost $8 from here. So so going to keep monitoring that for see how that unfolds over the next week or so. Next one was Marathon Patent Group, and another big move. It's a weekly chart trading above the 200 period moving average. It's taken out some of the overhead pivots R1, R2. So we're looking for the price really to continue really. So $31, shy of $31 would be the reasonable overhead resistance level there, initial target there. Potential retracement back to the 22 level for some potential buying opportunity there. So we'll monitor that. Switch over to the daily chart. So any pullback back into this $20 range over here, potential for a buying opportunity for price to continue up at the moment. Then potential much more upside potential with this one too. And APDN, or Applied DNA Sciences, huge one-day move there on Friday. Huge volume flowing through. It's taken out the 200 day moving average, closed way above it. Let's flick over to the weekly chart, get some perspective on this. Our immediate target is 13.5. See how we get there, and we'll come back and check this, see if it develops some kind of structure for us. But if it takes out R1 and it's comfortable above 14, go more look at the price action then to see if we get a potential setup to target 22. But at the moment, the next level is 13.5 on a weekly chart. So now over the winners over the last 5 days. Now over to the losers. We have ChemPharm Inc. down 50%. Sanara Medtech Inc. down 39.5% almost. Prosaida Therapeutics Inc. down 15.5%. We'll just have a quick look at the charts for these as well. So for ChemFarm, it hasn't been doing really well. In any case, it's again the weekly chart tracking down just below the 200 period moving average. Prices dropped with volume. So we look for that price to, by the looks of it at least, continue falling. We do have the previous year low over here, which sort of aligns up to the S1 yearly pivot as well. So that's going to be a key level for us to keep an eye on over here. So one to watch there. That's ChemFarm. SMTI Sanara Medtech, again big drop in price on volume as well. Reported a revenue increase in the third quarter of 2020 up there, so huge rally going into the year, end of the last year at least, so potentially could be one that potentially comes back from this quite quickly. Want to keep an eye on, get back above this potential uptrending channel, but the price to watch would be 36.94 ideally. For a move back up to 53, we'd want to see price close back above 36.80 or $37 would be ideal. But price continues down, the next level of support is around the $20 mark. Maybe we flick over to the daily chart. For the month, we might find support at the 200-day moving average. Might give us a potential for a good buying opportunity there. It wouldn't be a bad spot actually. Over here is S2 monthly pivot, which lines up nicely with the 200-day moving average. So again, price comes in this range over here. There's a potential buying opportunity as well. So another price level to keep an eye on there. That's Sanara Medtech. And finally, we have Pstx, Prosaida Therapeutics. Not much going on. Sort of trending up higher price was. Just flick over to the weekly chart, get some perspective on this. Not much history. To a new IPO last year. It's trading below the initial IPO range. And so here's our levels. I mean, up ahead you've got $12, down below over here you've got $6.52. You've got the previous year low around $7.63. So potentially some levels to watch. Also be watching this level over here to see how price reacts. So level there to potentially keep an eye on. We'll revisit this next week to see how price action unfolded over here. So that's your they're your losers over the last 5-day period. Now we're going to head over to pivotinvestor.com to perform a market scan, see if there's any potential opportunities over the next coming week. So on pivotinvestor.com, to new scan. Here I'm just going to select perhaps the Nasdaq. I want to look at price range for the last week and see if there were any yearly pivot values, floor pivots. So that's the last week's price range, the yearly pivot values, and the pivot type, I'm going to be looking for are the floor pivots, and that's what we had our charts on for when we were looking at the charts for the broader market, the winners and losers from the past week. So now the scans that we perform at the beginning of the year, it's the first full week of trading in the new year. So markets trying to find direction, but it can give us clues as to the movement of the stocks using these pivot levels. So we're looking for any stocks that have crossed these higher time frame pivot levels, crossed and closed above, for opportunities to go long to target the next pivot level over the longer term. I've got 686 matches, so let's just drill down a bit on that. Just go into the detailed view, and the first thing I want to do is just let's have a look at those instruments where volume is typically at least over 1 million. Okay, so all the stocks where volume was over 1 million. Now the blue shaded boxes indicate that the price range crossed the pivot value and then subsequently closed above the pivot value. So these are the blue boxes, and the red boxes indicate that price crossed the pivot but failed to close above it while it closed below it. So they are different shades. And we've also got a price action column over here, which I'm going to sort by. Typically I like to look at the new highs are being made, and there's a good decent average daily range, so we know that there's some action in the particular stock. So if I just have a look over here, some big movements there. Change. Have a look at this one. So you can see here there's a daily chart. Change Healthcare. Daily chart looks good. Price trending quite strongly upwards, and got a resting on the central pivot there on the daily chart. Let's look over the week. Huge price jump in the week. Over here, closing above the R1 central pivot. So look, in this scenario, where we'd see a continuation of this, and if it does break the high of the previous week at 24.21, our next overhead target is 27.54. So could get another retest of about $23 potentially before moving back up again. So we'll see how that unfolds. I'm just going to add that to the watch list over here. F-Cells had a good run of late. It's a daily chart. The monthly pivots, at least, it's gone from the central pivot to the R1 floor pivot. Those who follow us on Twitter would have seen us make this call from the central pivot to R1. Good move there. Look over at the weekly chart for the higher level price targets potentially. Got an outside engulfing pattern over here. So price action no reason why we'll stop here. We had initial resistance over here at the R1 yearly pivot at $16.39. So if price continues, we take out the high at $16.94 and price holds, and we'll be looking over the next month or period of time $21.5 as an initial target should price get back over and hold above 16.30. So another one to add here as a candidate. Let's have a look at one more, perhaps. Cross Corporation. Huge spike there. Price. That's the weekly chart again. So last year we saw price recover from that initial fall from early in the year, found support at the S1 yearly pivot level, and has been rising since. Huge increase into the end of last year, and now price, we've got an inside bar, given that was a huge move last month, but price has in the first week closed above this central pivot at $3.12. So there's a good potential for a big upside there. It's currently, the high of last week was $3.40. We get above that and hold, we can reasonably expect to target the previous year high at $5, potentially $5.40, taking us to the first yearly pivot up above at R1. So that's Cross Corporation. So I'll add that to the watch list. That's 3. As you can see, there's more candidates that we'll potentially look at, but we'll stop there. So I want to thank you for taking the time to watch the video. Please do take the time to visit us at www.pivotinvestor.com. Follow us on Twitter. Give this video a like. Do subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you again for watching the video. Hope to see you again next week. Take care and goodbye.